What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 383. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line from sunny Denver, Colorado. That was a total guess. It's Luis Scott-Vargas. What is it actually sunny?
So I cleared off a foot of snow off my car yesterday morning.
No way. Really?
I did, but it was 70 degrees and sunny today.
Oh, God. So I actually got there.
So you were right on that, but
wow.
Yes, it is.
Against all odds, I did it. All right. So you and I are fresh back from another GP weekend, but we're ready to dive into the show this week. We've got a combo platter for you. We're going to talk about Modern Masters 2017 briefly. Luis and I both feel like we've basically got the format figured out and just kind of wanted to put a bow on it. And then we're also going to talk about team drafting in a little bit of a different way. We've actually touched on this topic on the podcast before, but we're going to have a conversation, and I'll set the stage for that when we get there. It's going to be a little different than what you're used to on LR, but I think it'll be fun. Before we get into all that, let's mention our sponsor, channelfireball.com. This is the place on the internet to go to get everything that you need Magic related. And let's face it, we all need to buy Magic stuff from time to time. Sometimes it's a new playmat or some sleeves. Sometimes it's a single or even a whole deck worth of cards for constructed. And sometimes it's the hot new booster packs as they come out so that you can draft with your friends. And of course, not just open up the box, because who would do that? And you can find all of these things at channelfireball.com. They're going to have fair prices. They're going to get it out to you nice and quick. They've got solid customer service as well that's going to back you up and make sure that you're happy. And it's all in one place. While you're there, free content. Free. None of this, you have to pay for it. None of this subscription. It's just free content, just like LR. In fact, LR's on it, sitting right on that front page. Articles, videos, podcasts like this one from some of the best players in the world, all teaching you how to get better at Magic. What could be better than that? I can't think of anything. Channelfireball.com. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can do so. We've set up a Patreon for the show a while ago, and wow, has it been a game changer for us at LR. Patreon is just one of the coolest websites and ideas I've ever seen. It's like Kickstarter that happens over and over again. You set the amount. You can do $1 a show. It's $4 a month. And you get access to the Patreon feed where I put extra cool stuff. You get entered into giveaways. You get a thank you card. And you even get to submit questions for the question of the week, which I have right here from our listener, Keaton, who says, "Hi, Marshall and Luis. Really appreciate you putting together the podcast. Very entertaining and informative." Well, Keaton, that's exactly what we were going for. So thank you for that. I'm very new to the game. He came in Kaladesh. And I feel like I've made a lot of progress as a player and no longer struggle with the basics of steps or casting. However, recently, I feel like my progression has slowed down and I worry it may keep me from reaching the next level. What tips do you have for newcomers to avoid plateauing and continuing to get better? It was a while ago for you, Luis, and even for me at this point where I felt like a newcomer. I felt like I was getting better for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, you do hit some plateaus. And I think one of the big ones is, or one of the big, I guess, points when you start making improvement again is when you notice mistakes you make, actually. If you play a game and you don't notice any mistakes, you're either one of the best players in the world or you are not seeing your mistakes. And even the best players do make mistakes. So one of the ways to, I think, do a reality check on yourself is if you think your progression is slowing down, really examine each game after you play it and try to think of like the different decision points that you could have done differently and why you did the things you did and what the results were. And I think that's a good baseline that you really should never stop doing that. But if you take a more rigorous approach to that will reveal a lot, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty advanced stuff too. That will push you right up into that upper echelon pretty quickly too. So keep at it, Keaton. Also, Magic is such an incredibly complex and diverse game that you're probably still learning a lot, even though you may not be seeing those strides quite as much. It does tend to plateau off. That's normal. It's just not a perfectly flat plateau. It's just a slow climb up. And listening to the show and reading articles on CFB and stuff can help you make some strides here or there. We call those level up moments. But the truth is, it is a slow burn. I mean, it just takes a while before these concepts really start to click over and over, and you start putting together one concept with another one, and now these are working together, and you're really starting to improve your game. So stick at it. It might not feel like you're making leaps and bounds, but I bet you are improving more than you know. Okay, Let's do a Modern Masters 3 Crack-A-Pack because we are going to be talking about Modern Masters 3 in just a minute. This is from Corey. Gave this to me at GP Orlando. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate that. Let's see if we can't get some sweetness here. Okay. First card out. How do you feel about Spike Jester?
So this is red-black for a 3/1 haste. I have not put this card in my deck, and I do not anticipate doing so.
Yeah, it's weird to have a black-red card that's this aggressive. I mean, I can see why, because there's some other cards that support it, but Vampire Aristocrat, one of the better sack outlets.
Yeah, this is a 2 and a black for a 2/2 that you can sack a creature to give it +2/+2 until end of turn. I have seen people throw together decks with this and Mortician Beetle. I haven't largely been unimpressed by those decks, so I'm not taking Vampire Aristocrat either.
Those decks are so bad. Like, say hello to my friend the Mystery.
Fists of Ironwood is a kind of nice little combo, though. It gives it trample and 2 things to eat.
So our next card is called Fists of Ironwood.
Oh, there we go.
Solid prediction. 1 and a green. It's an aura that enchants a creature, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1s, and the creature gets trample. No. Grixis Slave Driver, super mediocre. I'm just kind of cruising through some of these, not really in contention for first pick type cards. Mud Button Torch Runner. Good name, not a great card. Pitfall Trap, why are you here? Augur of Bolas, I run this card quite a bit.
Yeah, so 1 and a blue for a 1/3, and then when you play it, you look at your top 3 cards of your library and then put them all on the bottom, because I never hit. But no, if you find an instant or sorcery among them, you get to put it into your hand. It's a good defensive early play that's not embarrassing in the late game, which is a really nice combination. And it works out with like blinks, like cards like Momentary Blink and Ghostly Flicker, so... I guess I'm in for Augur of Bolas. I hope not, that it's not what I'm first picking.
Yeah, then our next card is a card I've never hit off of Augur of Bolas. It's called Giant Baiting.
Yes. This is 2 colorless and a red-green hybrid, so 3 mana. It makes a 4/4 haste giant that you sacrifice at end of turn, and then it has a Conspire, so you can tap 2 red or green creatures and to get another copy of the spell. And you can keep doing that as you have more and more creatures.
So bad. Is it Guildgate?
All right, I guess
this
I'm okay.
Is right up there with Augur of Bolas.
Enters the battlefield, tap blue-red land. I'm kind of in.
Battle Rattle Shaman, no. All right, we're in the uncommons now. Things have to get better. Carnage Gladiator. This is the 2 black-red 4/2 skeleton warrior, and whenever a creature blocks, and it's of note, it's not it's just blocks, that creature's controller loses a life, and you can regenerate it for 1 black-red.
Yeah, this is another black-red aggressive card, and I think there are viable aggressive decks in the format. I just don't think black-red is a particularly good one, so I'm not going to take Carnage Gladiator here. I'd rather take Augur of Bolas or is it Guildgate?
Same thing. Unburial Rites. This card's been pretty good. 4 and a black. Return
like
creature
Unburial
card
Rites
from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you can flash it back for 3 and a white. Esper being probably the best, 3-color combo in the set. Unburial Rites fits into that and gets you value.
I would first pick Unburial Rites. I think that card is quite good to start with.
Yeah, I do too. Oh, God. Here's another just embarrassing card. Unflinching Courage.
Yes. 1 green white. It's an aura that gives the creature +2/+2 trample and lifelink. Also makes it a very nice Mistraven target. So, yeah, I'm off Unflinching Courage. I'm still on Unburial Rites.
I am too. All right. Our foil is Deathhood Cobra, which I'm not really sure why it's in the set. It just seems really underpowered compared to the other cards. But it's not the worst card. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2. It's a snake. You can pay 1 and a green to give it Death Touch, or you can pay 1 and a green to give it Reach. It's just underpowered to me. It's
playable like card if you need a 2-drop, but it's just so bad.
It's just like when my opponent plays it, I'm like, oh, good. All right. We actually got a contender at rare. It's Phantasmal Image.
That's interesting. 1 and a blue. It's a creature that when you play it, it enters the battlefield as a copy of another creature, and then if it ever gets targeted, it dies. I would take Unburial Rites first, I think. It's pretty close, but I've been happy with Unburial Rites. It just gives you such good late game inevitability. And when you have cards like Forbidden Alchemy in your deck where you're just, dumping cards into your graveyard, you end up, I think, with Unburial Rites being very good.
Yeah, I found Phantasmal Image is interesting in that it usually does get you value because so many of the cards have enter the battlefield effects, and you often copy one of those. But it usually does die pretty quickly too. This format is very hostile to Phantasmal Image, so you really do need, you don't want to be copying your Deathhood Cobra with it.
No.
I would take Unburial Rites here as well. I think it's just a better card in the format. But I do like Phantasmal Image. I might put it in my deck. All right, so that's a Crack-A-Pack. Of course, I will remind you that all of the rares that we open go in this little sleeve thing I have, and I send them off to a lucky patron once every month,
including the foil Death's Hood Cobra.
It's in there. I just put it in there, and the rest are going to go in the garbage can because that was not a great pack. Okay, so you may have gotten a hint about at least some of how Luis and I feel about the format. But Luis, let's burn through this because I think this is something that I wanted to give an update now that we've got a bunch of drafts under our belt, and I've been drafting this format a lot. And also just for posterity, right? Just, looking back, where did we end up coming down on Modern Masters 3? Well, we're going to talk about it here. I guess you could consider it like the smallest sunset show ever. We're just going to put a little punctuation mark on Modern Masters. Where do you want to start?
First, I want to talk about the decks that I've thought are good. It's a lot fewer decks than in previous Modern Masters sets. So
seriously, way fewer.
Basically, maybe this can kind of tell you what's going on. Dinrovahor, I think, is the best common by like a mile.
It's weird how much better it is than everything else, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just 4 blue-black for a 4/4 when you play it. It bounces a permanent, including lands, and whoever controlled that permanent discards a card. So the reason it's so insane is there's like Momentary Blink, Ghostly Flicker, Unburial Rites, Flicker Wisp, Deputy of Acquittal, tons of ways to rebuy the trigger. It also is a 4/4, so it's like a real card by itself, and it's a 2-for-1 because it gets you tempo and you're up a card. So it's just an absurd card, and the format just lends itself to a 6-mana card being good enough, especially with Signets and Uncommon. So what that kind of leads into is I think there's only really 3 decks that have seemed good to me, and the first is like 3 to 5 color control. Sometimes just straight 2 colors, whatever. You can be blue-black if you want to be, but 3 to 5 color control because there's like Signets, Guild Gates, Tri-Lands and Uncommon, Forbidden Alchemy, Mystical Teaching, tons of removal, cards like Sylvan Ranger. Like, you can just take a bunch of great, powerful spells and ways to cast them, and you'll have a good deck. Like, it just so much redundancy.
Yeah, there's too much of it. It's weird because everything you just described, these Esper decks, and I like Grixis a lot as well, these are all the things that I want to do. Like, if you were to describe, my favorite thing to do in Magic or favorite type of deck to play, it's a slow control deck that has a lot of bounce and that can get a lot of value, like grind out, card advantage. I love those decks. Like in Cube, those are the type of decks I try to draft all the time, even though that's just one slice of that particular pie. Here, I started doing it right away. Right? Like, I just dove right in. I'm like, oh, Misthaven, Dinrovahor, these are some of my favorite cards from the last, 3 or 4 years. I'm just in. And so I was just happy as a clam because everybody else is like, oh, I'm going to do these tokens decks, or I'm going to draft some aggro thing or whatever. And I'm just like, LOL,
Well, two things happen. One is when I first saw this, the second draft, when I first dived into the draft queues, I was just like, oh, wow, Mystical Teachings is a common? This is sweet. Wait, Forbidden Alchemy is also a common? Right. Wait, there's Opportunity and Compulsive Research? There's Momentary Blink and Ghostly Flicker and Deputy and Flicker Wisp and Misthaven and Dinrovahor. I'm like, what is going on? There's just too much of everything. How is this, real? Like, it's like every just, nonsense blue card all jammed into the same set. And then the other thing was I really wanted to make fun of you for I bet you think Misthaven is good. Then it turns out it's actually just really good.
I know. So, it is funny. Yeah, but it was funny because I have to say what you just said actually described me too. So I dove in, and I mean, you can watch them. They're going to go up on Channel Fireball, my draft videos. They've been sitting over there, and I do just draft those decks. But I don't know if I mentioned it at the time. I can't remember. But I know thinking in my head, I thought, well, I just have to. Because this is what I want to do in Magic or whatever. I'm just going to do it. But I assumed that it wouldn't be the best strategy. Like, I thought, well, somebody's just going to stomp me with some populate deck or something I hadn't thought of, some super archetype that's just, like thinking back to old Modern Master sets, there was an affinity deck and these decks that were just like, wow, like they really were powerful. Hard to deal with strategies. And I thought, well, I'm going to be dirtling around casting Misthavens and they're going to be, dumping their hand on turn 3 or whatever. And then I was just like, well, this deck seemed actually really good. And then I hit this point. And this is where things get a little less awesome, I'd say. I realized, well, okay, so here I can just describe a board state that sums it up perfectly, which is
I can describe an analogy, which is too much ice cream.
Yes. This is the point. This is when I had my fifth ice cream for dinner in a row, and I thought, maybe this isn't that great. And I had a Mistraven and a Momentary Blink and all this stuff going, and my opponent's board is like Dinrova Horror, Mistraven, Augur of Bolas, and Oracle, whatever it's called. And I'm just like, which the
Augur.
No, 2 and a blue Oracle.
Oh, Seagate Oracle.
Seagate
yes,
Oracle.
Of course. Yeah, see, look, it's just like a million of the same cards.
Right. They're all the same cards, and I'm looking at my Mistraven like, what am I supposed to do here? I'm not bouncing these things for them. Like, they're just getting value. And I realized that it had caught up to me, and that everybody else realized that this strategy was good, and I was like, 3 days ahead of it just because of my natural, tendencies, but that there was too much of this stuff in the set, and that it fit too well into the set. And now I just feel like I'm playing these long game grindy control mirrors where, like, on turn 3 I'm casting Pilfered Plans, and I'm like, do I target you or me? Because I know I'm going to get decked at some point, because these, we're going so deep into these decks with these control things. And then anytime somebody tries to play, a normal creature deck, some splicer deck or whatever, I'm just like, this is just so bad for you. Like, you're just going to get Dinrova Horde out of this game. And it happens like that every time. So you said it, man, too much ice cream. It's like,
look, I love ice cream.
Me too.
I'm going to continue eating it, but let's just talk about the last deck and then mention like how few there are. But like the other deck that I've seen do reasonably well is like a red green tokens-ish, like Mog Flunkies, Scorchusalka, Giant Baiting, Fist of Ironwood type deck. Like Gruul War Chant. Like, I have lost to this deck. It seems okay. Mm-hmm. But almost everything else just seems like wildly unplayable because, like you said, there's nothing linear enough or powerful enough, like Affinity from Modern Masters 1 and actually 2, right? Like the green-white tokens deck from Modern Masters 2 that were like, or fairies or whatever, that punish these slow, dirtily control decks. So every other kind of like deck that's themed there has just seemed much, much worse. And like, basically it just gets crushed by these Dinrova Horror Blink or, Mystical Teachings, Alchemy, Rewind, Spider Monitor, Cruel Ultimatum type decks. And that just really makes it so the format is really like, I wouldn't even say 3 decks. It's almost like 2.5 because the Blink decks and the 3-color control decks just look so similar.
Yeah,
I
agree.
So I like green-white populate is like another theme, right? It's just horrendous. Like,
it's so bad.
If you're populating and I'm misdraving, well, we'll see what happens. Like, Dinrova Horror is the straight 3-for-1. When you bounce a token, they discard a card, and then the Dinrova Horror itself trades for something. Then you probably get it back with like a recover or an Unburial Rights or whatever.
Right.
So,
it sucks because these are all the things that if you told me this at the onset of the format, I'd be like, oh my God, this is going to be my favorite format of all time. But they did it so hard in my direction that it's just like now everybody's in the pool with me and we're just like, well, this party got lame.
Yeah, you're spell piercing their mystical teachings and like,
exactly.
I mean, look, I don't
know. I still like it. I drafted it twice today. Like, I don't know. It's not. I'm not complaining, but it just is a little one note.
Like where I'm at right now, like. Is I'm going to continue drafting the format. I'm actually going to stream right after we record the show, as I updated people about on Twitter. Look, to be fair, you were tweeting too if you responded. So I think the format's quite fun. I will continue to play it. It does not have enough different experiences that I'm going to do 30 drafts of it. Like, I just know that. Whereas like Modern Masters 1, I never got to the end of it because it wasn't online long enough for me to draft as many times as I would have naturally.
Yeah.
Whereas Modern Masters 3, I'm getting pretty close to the end here. Like, I will draft it a few more times, but it doesn't have as many the legs that Kaladesh did. I did 30 something Kaladesh drafts on stream and a bunch more off stream. So.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's like, I just can't say no to the ice cream, so I'll just keep going. But it doesn't feel special to me in that way. It feels like, even though I got exactly what I wanted, it's a little bit too much of a good thing. That said, like, I'll keep drafting it. Whatever. It's still fun. These cards are great, and I don't think it's like a bad format. I'm still enjoying it, and I have done way more. I've done probably 20s. I'm in like mid to late 20s probably on number of drafts. So, but if it went away tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, no, don't take the cube from me. And I have felt like that sometimes when when the cube's out. Still, I can't complain too much. They gave me exactly what I like to do.
Right, like the vintage cube when it was out for like 3 weeks or something, I did 50 drafts, or a month, and I did 50 drafts, and it still was. I would have done more. Yeah, that's just not going to be the case.
Because that cube is so good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say, if you haven't drafted Modern Masters, try it. It's fun. If you have, maybe do a couple. If you want to do more, obviously do more. But it is a format I would highly advise drafting. It is not a format that I think has. Again, the breadth of experiences that I look for to keep me coming back over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, it is interesting because there's no way they designed these to be drafted 100 times, right? Like your average Magic player gets to draft it less than one time.
Yeah, you don't need to, because in paper it's pretty difficult to draft this too many times. Online, it actually isn't that hard to get a lot of drafts in, especially with like phantom drafts. So I think that it would be better if they were drafted for longer. Like that, would just be superior. Like Modern Masters 1 definitely had that depth, and Modern Masters 2, I recall that liking it a little less than 1, but I did like Modern Masters 2 as well.
Yeah, so I felt the same. Modern Masters 2, you could draft 5 color, and it was sweet. Yep. Okay, so that's Modern Masters. I agree with Elise, by the way. Draft it if you get a chance, but it might not have as many quite the legs that you would assume. Okay, so here's what's going on. This is the second half of the show, or the other part of the show that I wanted to get into here. Team drafting.
Yes.
So yeah,
we use the phrase that this is the Cadillac of Magic, but when we talked about this last time on the show,
that's right.
Yeah. It really is. Team drafting, I think, is the most fun of any Magic format I've ever had, not even remotely close. And trust me, I love Vintage. I love Vintage Cube. I like drafting a new set. Like, the first 5 drafts of every new set are like among peak Magic for me. Team draft just blows it out of the water. Like it's not close to being close.
Right. And this has become relevant. And so what's happening is Randy Buehler and Athena Froelich over at Vintage Super League headquarters there are going to be doing a draft Super League, a team draft Super League, in fact. And it's looking like I'm going to be on a team, and Luis is also going to be on a team, though we will be on different teams for it. And I'll hold off on saying that just because they haven't announced everything fully, but it is looking that way.
The proposed teams Randy had on the Patreon page were you, Cheon, and other Cheon Kenji, and I have Ben Stark and Eric Froelich. So
yeah, those are the proposed teams, but we haven't locked in. So yeah, right. The teams are just completely absurd. I'm going to put a link to the Team Draft Super League in the show notes. Also, they are looking to fund it for the season. I think they have a Patreon up, and then they're also looking for sponsorship opportunities or something like that. So I'll let you handle that as you see fit, but I will put the link in the show notes. I'm not going to say what to do one way or the other, but I'll put the link in. But anyway, the deal is, well, actually it started because at the GP, not this weekend, not this last weekend, but the one prior, we were just standing around by the booth or something, and it was looking like me and Kenji were going to pull in Paul Cheon.
Yeah, we had 5 of the 6 people of those 2 teams there, right?
Yeah, and we were just talking about it a little bit, and for me, one of the things that pops up about team draft is that in my era, it's never really been a super popular thing to do. I've done a few of them. I've done them on Coverage Team, and then I've also done a few of them with Seattle players. We had, in fact, a team draft, like a league that went a few years ago. So these things aren't foreign to me, but you hear Randy talk about it, and you too. You hear the more older Pro Tour players talk about it, and they make it sound like people were just team drafting nonstop on Pro Tour weekends, like the whole time. And so
you can still see some of that. Like you don't specifically see it because we're in the booth all day Sunday.
Yeah.
But all the players who didn't make it to Sunday, which is everyone but 8 people in the PT, like tons of those players show up. They actually get free packs because this is a great initiative, by the way, where WotC just gives free packs to draft for all the competitors for the Pro Tour.
Yeah, that's great.
And you can just see table after table of 3-on-3s, and you'll look out and there's this Hall of Famers, platinum, gold players, like all these players just battling each other, and yeah, that's because 3-on-3, team drafting is really, really fun.
Yeah, but again, there's a lot of strategic things that I am not like. I need reps at this stuff, right? So we were talking with Ben Stark, and I said, Ben, we're going to be in this league or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, that's cool, whatever. And I said, well, will you teach me how to team draft? Because like I don't know the fundamentals or whatever. And he said no. He's like, no, you're in the like if you're going to be in the league playing against us, I'm not going to teach you. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like I don't know why I expected Ben to do that. So then I just asked you instead, and you said, yeah, sure, I'll teach you.
Well, and Ben was standing right there. Like,
yeah, of course.
This wasn't the same conversation.
Yeah, you got a 2-for-1. You helped me and hurt him. That's even though he's on your team.
Well, maybe it's because I don't think that your team is a threat.
Well, to be perfectly honest, we're not.
I'm just trying to get some trash talk going.
I know, but I wish I could fight back. I looked at the list of the teams that are proposed right now, and it's just like this absurd, Peach Garden Oath, you three, people that are, John Finkel, Jamie Park, and, Pakula, who I'm just like, this is just silly. We are certainly going to be the underdog, at least from a, prediction standpoint. But anyway, we can play, like we'll be fine. But I do feel like I need a background. I do feel like I need not just, to sort of poke around. I need to get a little bit more of like a, one-on-one Luis time about, okay, man, teach me this and let me ask you questions. So what we're going to do on the show today is this is going to happen. I said, you know what? Let's just do it live. Like normally I would be like, Luis, let's go out to dinner. And I'm going to pick your brain and you tell me what I need to know about this stuff and we'll get into depth. And so instead of doing it as much as like a show topic, this is going to be an opportunity for you to just listen in on Luis and I talk about this stuff. So it's going to be it'll probably come off a little bit different than we would like when we normally do a show where we're really trying to present to you. This is going to be Luis and I talking instead, which is not that big of a step off from how we do the show. It's just we're aiming these things at each other and you get to be a fly on the wall and listen in on how this stuff works. So why don't we get going? Where would you start me off with how to team draft? Because you know, and remember, this is tailored to me. So you talk to me, you know what I know about draft and what I don't, and you know my experience level with team draft roughly. So what are the big hitters? What do I need to know here?
All right, I'm gonna break the fourth wall for just one more second and explain exactly how team draft works.
Okay, I'll let you do that. I'll be over here drinking water.
Even though I seeing what's good on Twitter. So how team draft works is it's a 3-on-3, as we've mentioned, 3-person teams, and you sit alternating. So if the three of us were playing against you, Kenji, and Paul, it'd be like you, me, Kenji, Eric, Paul, Ben.
Yep.
So you're always surrounded by 2 of the opposition. Each player plays all 3 opponents. You draft normally, left, right, left. Each player plays all 3 opponents, and the first team to 5 match wins out of the 9 total matches wins. And you don't communicate during the draft. So no secret, no hand signals, no coughing when you're doing it live. When we're doing it for the Team Draft Super League, obviously we're not going to be messaging each other. So there's no communication during the draft. And then afterwards, during deck building, you do communicate with your team.
Right.
So,
which is a big deal, and we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that there's a lot of information.
All right, so that's at the stage. I know that you knew that, but
yeah,
the biggest thing that I think what you're going to want to think of differently, and the biggest part that it takes to reframe is it is no longer a cooperative endeavor. This is now a zero-sum game. Like
right.
when you're sitting at a table with 7 other people and you're drafting. Your goal is to maximize how good your deck is, but you don't care how good other people's decks are for the most part.
Right.
Like you want to cooperate with the people next to you. You want to send good signals. When people send you signals, you read them in good faith because their goal is to have you, like the person to your right passing you good red cards wants you to draft red. They want you to draft red because they're drafting green white, and then you both have better decks. And sure, you might play each other, but you're both maximizing your individual win percentages by cooperating with the people next to you. Team draft, it puts that completely on its head. And that's the biggest leap because I have seen a lot of very skilled individual drafters just, make a fool out of themselves team drafting.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm worried about, because like I've worked really hard to try to be a good drafter, like to really draft good decks and understand like when to take risk and when not to and stuff like that.
Oh,
and this is the thing I'm worried about. Yeah, I feel like I'm like is my skill set not going to apply to this? Like,
it's not like it, that it doesn't apply exactly. It's that it's very, very different, and you'll have to take some of those lessons you learn and flip them around almost. Like,
Jesus, that sounds hard.
Being great at team draft in some ways makes you be bad at normal drafting and vice versa. So that's part of why it's so great, is that the classic team draft setup. Look, I've heard rumors that from time to time when people do these team drafts, sometimes, they put a lot of pride on the line, and the classic setup is the fresh out of the PT top 8, like Platinum Pro who's good at Magic, plays against these like team draft sharks and just gets taken for a ride, because that does happen.
Yeah.
And it's because all the skill, if you started playing competitive Magic 4 years ago, you're well seasoned, you have some good results. You probably never really learned how to team draft.
Right. You didn't. Yeah. And I mean, like, talking to Ben about it, he was saying that back in the day, and he did tell me this. And by the way, I did think this was fair, though I just know that I won't have the opportunity. He's just like, look, man, nobody taught me. He's like, I had to go in and play against, the old school guys. And it was like,
Oh yeah. The Gabe Walls and Neil Reeves.
Yeah.
And all these guys who I'm sure, Ben, had some expensive lessons throughout the course of his career.
But he said he was glad to take the losses there to learn, but I'm not going to have that chance.
No.
Which is why I'm leaning on you here.
Well, so this is what I'm going to try to explain, because you really have to get in a completely different mindset. So if you 3-0 a normal draft, you did it. That was your goal, right?
Yep. Always.
If you 3-0 a team draft, but the person to your left 3-0s also, you don't actually come out ahead there. You know what's better?
Okay.
To go 1-2 and pass them an 0-3. Like,
to go, so I'm up a match.
If you go 1-2 and the person to your left goes 0-3, which you can take most of the credit for because you passed to them 2 of the 3 packs, then that's an advantage for your team. Your individual wins just don't matter. You need, it's just all about the team.
Okay.
So
I like that, by the way. That sounds cool.
Yeah. So the goal of team draft is to train wreck the person to your left as hard as possible. The goal of team draft is to have the best deck you can have, knowing the person to your right is trying to get you, and you're trying to hate draft going both directions. So decks and team
Is there a hierarchy to those decisions? Like, am I more concerned about train wrecking the person to my left or not letting the person to my right train wreck me?
It's kind of hard to say, because it's like both.
Okay.
You want to do what maximizes your win percentage, which sometimes means taking a hit on your deck to make it so the person to your left is worse, but sometimes mean passing them something good because the card you're getting for your deck is better.
I see.
So
and I have to make that judgment call in the moment.
Yes, it's not binary. And team draft decks look so much worse as a result. If you don't have a bunch of good playables in your sideboard, you probably weren't team drafting hard enough. You weren't hating enough cards. So like a classic mistake that people make is, you're red-green, right, in pack 3, and you open a great red-green uncommon, but like an absurd bomb, like white rare. And you take the red-green uncommon, the person to your left takes the white rare, and their deck's better.
I see. And that's a pretty straightforward transaction.
It is, but here's where it gets complicated. If you are high enough confidence that the person to your left isn't white,
this is where it gets really cool.
This is where it gets so good, because look, think of these two scenarios. You open. I'm going to use an example from like Battle for Zendikar, right? Like you open Quarantine Field as your mythic, and you open Grip of Desolation as your uncommon, the best uncommon and one of the best mythics.
Okay.
And you're playing black red, so you want to take Grip, right? If this was an 8-player draft, you would take Grip, not even close.
Yep.
This is a team draft, and you're like, wow, I can't pass Quarantine Field. It's so much better. So you hate draft it. If the person to your left is drafting like black green, look what happened.
It jumps over. Oh my god!
You got a 0, and the person to your left, your opponent, got a first pick bomb. Now flip it, and if you're really skilled at team draft, you should have a very good idea of what they could be and potentially what they should be. And then I can pass Quarantine Field, and now they're the one who has to hate draft it. So if you get the colors
that's
right,
awesome. That's
such
really
a huge
sweet.
Swing.
Oh my god!
The biggest disaster in the world is when you hate draft the Quarantine Field from your teammate, which
when it would have skipped over that person potentially,
or force them to hate draft. And And those are the kind of huge pack swings or pick swings that you don't see in nearly the same way as in individual draft.
So what's the default then? Because I can imagine scenarios where I have an idea for what the person on my left, air quote, should be in, but that they're not.
So it's like in Kaladesh, if you open a Noxious Gearhulk, you need because of how good it is and what delta that'll give between the next best card that the opponent could take.
Yeah.
You need to have a very high confidence that they're not playing black. And
I can't imagine having that high of a confidence.
Well, in that case, you should take the Noxious Gearhulk, because when that goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
It goes horrifically. Like, I need to know. Because the thing is that the signals that I get in the second pack from my left-hand side are almost equally dictated by the person literally on my left, which is on the other team, and then the person on their left who's on my team. Like, how do I differentiate whether the person 1 to my left or 2 to my left is the one who's scooping up all the white cards? You know,
it's very difficult.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's my gamer mentality is
kind of a lie.
That's what I'm saying, is that like because when I think of poker, like, this is the example I have, is that, you know, a lot of times somebody just puts in a huge bet in on the river, and you're just like, well, how do I know if they're bluffing? And like, everybody has their little voodoo about like some live read or the way that they did a thing, or they wouldn't have done this. But for the most part, you just don't know. Like, and so for me, you know, I try to, like, you know, not have that be that my huge decision for the night is me effectively just guessing, right? Because, you know, humans are bad at that stuff, and we give ourselves way too much credit.
You're going to get to the point where you're not guessing if you do it enough. And sometimes, and you're never fully confident, right? But you sometimes have to just weigh risk reward, and if you're not confident enough in what is going on, the other thing you have to look at, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, is, you know, splashable cards are very different. Release the Gremlins is just not a card I'm going to pass in a team draft very often.
I see, because they could still just take it and wreck you with it, even if they were in black green or whatever.
Right.
All right.
You know, so here's a classic example. If you opened a pack with a first pickable black card and 2 first pickable red cards, and the black card is the best of the 3. In an individual draft, you just snap up the black card. Right?
Absolutely.
Not close.
Yeah.
In a team draft, you know what happens when you do that? You get a great black card. The person to your left gets a great red card, and then your teammate gets a great red card. You know who that completely screws? Your teammate. Because now they started with
they
a
have
red
2
card.
packs of getting filtered by the guy on your left.
Right. They now took a red card directly after take a red card. That's the dream. You want that to happen to your opponent. You don't want it to happen to your teammate.
Right. Of course.
So what you can do in this situation, you first pick one of the great red cards. The person to your left is going to take this black card, because we're assuming the black card is like clearly better than the red card. The person to your left takes a black card. Your teammate then takes a red card, and then you start drafting black.
You cut the person in the middle.
Because the goal is every time you pass a pack, you should have a pretty good idea of what the person to your left wants to take. And this is where the leveling starts. If I'm sitting there and you pass me 2 great black cards in a row, I'm going to assume you're drafting black. I'm going to assume
it's actually to the point that it's the default that I'm trying to trap you, or
if I think you know how to team draft.
I mean, obviously now it's going to be
because you're smart and you're listening to this and you can understand it. Yeah. But I've had team drafts where I just know that the person on my right is just drafting the best deck they can draft in an 8-player queue, and you can just take them. Again, you can just completely destroy them because they're just going to give you good signals, and you're going to take those, and you're going to get a good deck while simultaneously screwing their teammate to the left.
The next person down the line. I see.
So that is like the classic example of like what you know how you flip something completely from team versus normal.
Is that a hook and cut?
That is a hook and cut. Yes,
okay.
I hooked you by passing you a first pickable black card, and then I cut you by taking those cards. The other thing you really want to look at, and this again comes back to splashability, is it's so much better to pass you a Daring Demolition in that spot as the pick, because you can't just splash that, you know. Whereas something like Hungry Flames, you can audible into like green black splashing a Hungry Flames.
Okay, now hold on a minute. Now I have a question. So instead of you being you, let's say you're the person on that player's left. So the person passes you a Daring Demolition. And let's say you're like, well, I look to my right and it's Ben Stark, right? It's somebody who I know knows what they're doing here. What's the strategy for me? Am I supposed to say, no? Because now I'm just shipping a great black card one down. Now, if Ben actually does start cutting black, I have effectively screwed the player on my left. But if it doesn't work out that way, I just gave him a Daring Demolition, 3rd pick.
Yeah, it's contextual, but that is one way to juke that. It's not always this clear because sometimes you'll just open a pack and there'll be like 5 cards of comparable power levels.
Well, and also somebody upstream of Ben could just be cutting black and he might not be able to get into it anyway.
Or you open the equivalent of a Noxious Gearhook plus the next card also being black, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're mixing sets here because I'm just pulling examples out of nowhere. But if I open Noxious Gearhook and Murderous Cut and I took Noxious Gearhook and passed you a Murderous Cut, you would be suspicious, but you'd still take it. And you wouldn't know whether it was because the rare was great or because I was trying to trap you. But when you see like a 3rd or 4th pick during demolition, then you should be suspicious because that would naturally not happen. So by me passing it to you, I am trying to get you to take that card. It's funny though, because you can still sometimes work with that. And sometimes you want to pass that card and hope that that means that your opponent's now getting cut by their own teammate, which is great because that's the dream.
That's got to be the dream, right? Yeah.
Because then you just have 2 people on the same team fighting over a color while you're getting whatever's left over.
What would you say the fundamental is in this? Because like you said, we're dipping our toe into this leveling war thing, right? Where now we're kind of like, what's the baseline play here?
The base level is you want to control the person to your left's draft, and because of how draft normally works, you do have a more agency over doing that. You want to control their draft and maximize what you're getting while minimizing what they're getting, which often means counterintuitive picks like passing a black card then taking a black card, which often means hate drafting at a higher degree than normal. And every time you pass a pack, you just want to have a good guess as to what they're going to take. Sometimes you won't know. Sometimes, you'll open a pack with 4 cards that are equal of different colors, and it'll kind of depend on whatever they first picked, which you won't know. But if you can pass 2 black cards, picks 4 and 5, and then start taking black cards after that, like let a couple through, then you're going to get an edge. That's why it's really dangerous to pass packs with 2 good cards of the same color. And
that's something I need to keep my eye out for sure.
Yeah, and again, sometimes it's unavoidable. The packs break the way they break. If you open a Sky Sovereign, you just have to take it, or you've taken 3 good red cards in a row, and you get a pack with like another good red card and 2 black cards. Like, yes, you might be getting set up, but sometimes you should just take the red card still, because no one can completely cut you off. You can still draft a deck that is like if I'm cutting red from you, you're to my left, you can still draft a base green deck with your good early pick red cards that I passed you.
Yeah, everybody's been in that spot, even in a regular draft, where it's just like, well, pack 2 is going to be my great red, But the thing one thing I'm having a hard time conceptualizing here. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Like the different, that I'm trying to maneuver such that I'm really have a lot of agency over what my opponent on my left is doing, because I get to pass them 2 packs and I'm the biggest influencer of that. That makes sense to me. But when I'm making these picks trying to screw them over, don't I have to look down at my own pile of cards at some point and be like, well, do I have a deck?
Yes, you still need to draft your own deck. So you again, the bar is lower, because if you take 3 people drafting like this versus 3 people drafting, normal decks, you are going to get wrecked harder if you're not paying attention to what's going on here. But everyone's deck's going to be worse than a normal event, because you have a bunch of saboteurs running around.
Yeah, everybody's kind of trying to do that too. So how is it more important that I screw over the person to my left, or that I get a good deck myself? Because I could see a scenario where, I just draft a better deck than the person to my left, or than to
it's more important. It's more important that you get an advantage out of it, which can mean drafting a better deck. Like you ultimately want to have a better deck than them.
Yeah.
But it's fine if you bring both of your level down. Like you would rather have them have a 2 and you have a 4 than them have like a 5 and you have a 9, I think.
I see. Okay. It's okay to lower the playing field in general.
Sorry,
as long as the gap is bigger.
Yeah,
I need the bigger gap. Yeah. Okay.
So you'd rather them have a 2 and you have a 5 than them have a 6 and you have a 7.
Okay.
That's a better way of putting it, because the gap is bigger. You're going to get more of a win equity there. You also want to make sure not to pass anything unbeatable. Like a very good example of this was in a side draft. Actually, this involves Ben, funnily enough, where one of Ben's teammates, who name Withhold, took a Rakdos Guildmage, which is a red-black for a 2/2 aggressive creature with aggressive abilities. You know who I'm talking about.
I do exactly now.
For his aggressive red-black deck over Hypersonic Dragon, which is a splashable flying hasted, dragon, and went 3-0, but the person who got the Hypersonic Dragon also went 3-0, and that team ended up losing, like the team where the Hypersonic Dragon got passed. So by taking a 10 for your deck over an 8 for your deck, but giving the other team a 10 instead of a blank, like you lost equity. So every pick should be like that. It's less about how the ending deck composition.
Ooh, I like this. This is the way I think about things anyway. Yeah.
Right. So,
it's hard for me to frame it right now because I still don't feel like I have. I mean, we're obviously in the middle of the conversation, but like I love. Like I actually think this plays to my strengths. Like to be able to adjust these
basically
things, relative.
every pick you make, you want to get the best of the exchange, and sometimes that means you're taking a 0 because that means basically like. Let's say there's a pick where you take a 5, but you have to pass an 8. Mm-hmm. It's better for you to take a 0 and pass a 3 because 8s are so much better than 3s.
Sure.
And 5s are just not that good because the way Magic also works, and we've described this by the way, it doesn't scale linearly. An 8 is more than twice as good as a 4.
Yeah, the best bombs are completely on another level compared to the cards even just 2 notches below them. Yeah.
Right. So it's. The best cards are so much better than the medium cards that you'd rather hate a great card than take a medium card almost every time.
So it's basically always a mistake in packs 2 and 3 and obviously 1 as well, but to pass a bomb like one of those premium bombs.
Well, if you think that it's going to force your opponent to hate draft it from your teammate, it's
right. Okay. Right. Yeah. See, the thing is that like I think that I'm not going to have the skill set at that point to be able to make that assessment. Nor do I kind of don't believe in it. Well, I know that sounds weird. I just don't know how you would have that level of information unless you just knew that the person next to you was just a buffoon who was just doing exactly what you wanted them to do. I'm certainly not going to find that person in this team draft Super League.
I don't know. I mean, like if I'm passing to Paul, like I'll have a pretty good idea. Like,
are you calling him a buffoon?
I would never.
Dare you? That's my potential teammate.
And one of my best friends. So why would I insult him on a podcast that dozens of people listen to? So, look, you said you wanted to keep it conversational.
Yeah. No. This is good. I just, it just rings my alarm bells, man. This you know what they have thing. Yeah, it just sounds like pure FPS. That's all it sounds like to me.
But if you're good enough at it, you can have an 80% confidence that they're this color and not this color. And you have to use all that information. Basically, it'll happen.
I don't know if I do it with 80% confidence. I'm not.
Well, depends on the card.
Shipping them a noxious Gear Hulk, and then
then they're like.
I have to go to the team meeting after and be like, I passed the noxious Gear Hulk. Did you get it, Kenji? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh god. And then we go, is Luis in black? And it's like you go turn 1 swamp, and I'm just like, oh no, like what a disaster, right? Like,
yeah. So my assumption is most people are going to just be hitting the best bombs because it's just so risky not to. But I've seen it work out in both directions.
Yeah, well, I've seen people call people that may have been bluffing, and it turns out that they were, but they didn't have any framework. It was like, right. I almost guarantee that you could just randomly pick and get close to the same, correctness rate as somebody who was like, well, he drank his drink a little different, or he bet, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I have a BS meter for that stuff, for those fancy play syndrome spots.
Yeah, and I think that you can still have pretty high percentage playing it straight up, but the payoff really is big, though.
I mean, that is a disaster for your opponent, right? If you ship them a card they have to hate or pass, the upside. But I mean, at the same time, it's just as enticing as calling a huge bluff on the river. I mean, nothing feels better.
You get to feel really clever.
Yeah.
So the next part about the team drafting is the exciting part, which is the team meeting. Which is
this is really important. In fact, I actually sent Randy an email about this because we're still sorting out how it's going to go.
Yeah, so this is when you meet with your teammates and you build your decks because you do that together. And here's where having a good memory does come in handy, by the way, because you want to keep a running tally, and you don't have to remember every single card. Like, yeah, if you can do that, great, you're a genius. But what I try to do is remember the keynote cards. Like, I passed this dragon, I passed this wrath, I passed a 4th pick, welding sparks. Did you see it 6th pick? That sort of thing, and clearly pay attention to who's to your left and who's to your right so you know who you need to talk about. But you need to, by the end of deck construction, you should have figured out what your 3 opponents likely are playing. Not always. To use Paul Tian as an example, the finals of Grand Prix San Jose was a team draft. Paul thought he drafted blue-black. It turned out he drafted black-green as when we started building.
Yeah, that happens a lot in train wreck drafts too, which these are kind of by default, right?
Right. And you end up knowing, or at least having good guesses as to what each opponent is, and that helps inform your deck building. Whether you main deck a Naturalize or you main deck, a plummet, anti-flying cards, with who has the Wrath and who has the Fireball and all that sort of thing.
Swamp Walk, whatever. Yep.
Right, and that gives you a groundwork going in, and then of course during the matches you need to pay attention too. And on Magic Online, I guess we're gonna watch each match. I think so that there won't be simultaneous.
Right.
So we'll get a chance to look at our opponent's decks, during the match and see what information we get and who's aggressive. But normally and who that is be on the draw against.
Yeah, normally that is something that you talk about in the player meeting and also in between games, right?
Yeah.
Like specifically instance and things that need to be played around.
Yeah, they have this. This is where writing things down is a lot more helpful.
And maybe it's more conducive to Magic Online as well. Because the team drafts I've done in real life, nobody wrote anything down. I don't even know if that would be considered kosher.
No, you can do that if you want. I don't do that because I just don't.
Because you have a great memory, but. But really, what you're talking about here are key cards.
I don't have a pen either, so or a piece of paper. I'd have to borrow both of those things.
That is, I guarantee that's also true. But these are like key cards that you're thinking about too, right?
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter if you cast Grizzly Bears or something.
Yeah. You want to remember
same example. Did you hear that?
Yeah, synergy.
Damn.
You want to remember combat tricks. You want to remember like big, powerful cards, sweepers, like any bombs.
Counter spells, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Whether they have auras, like they have 2 Caught in the Brights and a Revoke Privileges, I'm going to definitely bring in like this self-bounce card or whatever. Like I'm going to bring in my, I don't even remember the name. The 3 in a blue, flicker 2 of your cards. Something.
Illusionist Stratagem.
Yeah. Wow. 2 weeks away from coverage and I forgot it all. It's like cramming for a test. Look, I'm on the Dinrova horror train. I'm on Ghostly Flicker.
Yeah, seriously.
And then another thing, like taking another step back, looking from a high level, the types of cards that get better in team draft are cards that function by themselves. Like you're not going to draft a great energy deck as often because you're just not going to get as many synergy cards. Your deck's going to be sloppier. You're splashing more often, so splashable cards and fixing. Like Prophetic Prism sounds like a great card in a team draft. And you're going to just, again, end up with a worse deck on average. So like I think the Super League is going to be with Amonkhet, so it's not going to have Kaladesh, but Kaladesh Aether Revolt would have been interesting because there's so many artifacts. It actually would have dampened a lot of this effect, whereas I'm looking forward to more on Amonkhet to actually be able to hate draft and really screw people over, because that's like the fun part of the team draft experience.
How much time did you guys, like when you were doing the team drafts, actually take to try to flesh out what the other people's decks may look like? Like how important is that info?
A couple minutes, not like an insane amount.
Because you could do a lot, right? Like you could be like in pack 1, did you get a 3rd pick? Blah, blah, blah. No. Okay, that was a white card. What about 8th pick? Did you get the thing I passed? No. Okay, that was another white card. And you could really narrow it down, because when you think about it, each player opens a pack and there's an unknown card for each player that they get to pick. And then every other pick for that whole pack and all the rest of them outside of the pack 1 pick ones, or excuse me, the pick ones, you've passed those cards to the person. Like you could reverse engineer effectively the whole draft, on a computer pretty easily.
Yeah.
I just wonder how important that is.
You don't need to do that. You want to kind of establish baseline colors, like, oh yeah, we know Marshall took 3 white cards, so it's just going to be drafting white, right?
Yeah.
But you don't need to break everything down. Again, just the important categories.
Just the main cards. Okay.
Because look, yes, you have some flexibility, but realistically at the end of the draft, I'm going to have like 23, 24 cards I want to play, and I'm not going to build my deck that differently. It's just good to have that information. Like you're not frequently going to be like, well, I would have built my deck green-white, but I guess I'll build it green-black because I'd rather have all these like 2/3s instead of 2/1s. Like sometimes that happens, but it's like pretty rare.
Okay. Yeah, I've always wondered about that, because it feels like there's a wealth of information available, but I can't really figure out how, like, if you know that somebody's black-white, I don't know. I guess it matters somewhat in the way that you build your deck, but like you have to play against their teammates too. So I don't know. You're going to find that out before you sideboard anyway, in most cases.
Right. It doesn't change that much, but it's good to have an idea. And again, it could impact things.
Yeah, but those individual cards do matter a lot. Like
it's more the keynote cards. It's more like knowing that you have like Yeheni's expertise.
Yes.
Means that I'm not going to like play into it, or knowing that you have, I don't know, some like generic large flyer that got passed to you means that I'm not going to use my Daring Demolition on your 4/4 if I can deal with it otherwise.
Right. And if the game's going to be going long, then when you're in the game, you'll be thinking about doing that. Also, yeah, certain types of removal spells pop up too. Right. You know, if Doomblade is in the set or whatever, and you're like, well, I've got this aura, but they've left up 1 and a black. Like, you know, in most scenarios, you could just run it out there because, you know, Doomblade's an uncommon in the sets, you know, that it was last printed in, but you know, okay, they could absolutely have a way to blow me out here. Okay. Huh.
Yeah, it's complicated. Team drafting is hard. Basically, don't treat it, again, I think the biggest takeaway is this is not you trying to draft a good deck. This is you trying to control as best you can the decks of the people around you and have every pick you make be positive value for your team, not your deck, your team. So that is the game, and that's what's so different than a normal draft, and that's kind of what makes it interesting. And honestly, one of the ways I got a lot better at Magic was team drafting, and I did it just at a local store. You know, I just found 6 people, and we would just do team drafts over and over again. And it just makes you think about things on such a deeper level, and it's just really fun. So yeah. I would recommend listeners who haven't done this before to try and do it, because it is actually really fun. Like I want to do it right now, actually. Is there
a like, if I have a pick in front of me, let's say there's 2 good uncommons, one in my colors and one not, and they're equal, like I rate them equally. Is there any decision between passing and not? Like,
you should generally just
take it, right?
Take it for you, because you know you're going to play it and it's in your colors. So therefore, at very worst, it's a wash. And maybe the person you're passing to you does not,
yeah, it could get through them
color,
or something.
And then they have to hate it or pass it. And you might end up in a spot where if you took the other card, like, you're not going to play it, and then they'd still take the other card you passed, and that didn't help you at all.
Is there a point at which you bail on the hating? Like, let's say I've got 12 playables and we're like 3 picks into the 3rd pack. Like, do I need to start going like, look, I have to put together a deck that I can actually like cast spells, because I'm going to O3 this horrifically without it, and I just have to start taking cards that I can actually cast and just, you know, hate drafting, be damned? Or I guess that probably doesn't happen, but it feels like I've seen
it doesn't really happen
these decks with
like
so many
that.
different colors, right? Like, where I'm like, you know, where people have spread their wings a little too far on the colors, and any 2 of the colors will only yield them, you know, not enough playables or whatever.
That's a little more contextual. Like, again, if you just approach it from the metric of like each pick, what provides more value for your team overall, then that'll lead you to the right place most of the time. Whether it's hate drafting a good card or versus taking a medium card, you usually want to hate draft. But you know, you hate draft enough times, you end up playing those cards too.
Yeah, that's a funny thing too, right? Because on top of all this strategy that's going on, the booster packs just to have a huge element of randomness to them as well. And sometimes you have to pass a good card, right? I mean, there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, and I guess that reminds me to make sure you have and we're going to be doing this on Magic Online, so we're going to get to see. It's much harder on paper when you can't look at your cards. Like, you hate draft 2 red cards in a row, you might just be playing red. Like, it's much more. Don't be locked into what you think you're doing. This isn't like a normal draft where midway through pack 1, you're mostly like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm black-green. This is a format where you can change colors in pack 2, because you had to hate draft 3 different great red cards, and then you have an artifact and another red card, and it's all of a sudden like, okay, I guess I'll just audible into red, because that's just how these packs ended up breaking.
Okay, so I should be keeping my mind much more open.
Yeah, be very flexible.
Being very flexible about how those things are going to go. And what about one other question I had was, you know how like in a normal booster draft, you can put a pretty reliable prediction on like how the colors are going to be flowing. You know, if you just get completely cut on red in the 1st pack, you know that the 2nd pack's probably going to bring you some decent red, and then you won't have it again in the 3rd. Is there any type of rhythm or pattern that you see in that way?
No, it's just very deceptive when you're drafting with good players.
Because they're trying to not let you see that.
You can have red feel like it's flowing in pack 1, and then all of a sudden in pack 3, there's just not a single red card.
Is there anything that I should look out for as like you mentioned the hook and cut and stuff, but is there something that if it happens, you know, in the back of your head as an experienced team drafter, you're like, oh, no, I know what this is. Like, if you just happen to get shipped like a big bomb or something like that, is that just a mistake from the person, or should I be like very questioning that? Like,
getting shipped a bomb is usually good news for you. It's harder to trap people, but where my spider senses really start tingling is when I get multiple packs in a row with an obvious pick. because then I feel like I'm getting forced into something.
I see.
You don't want the person to your right to know what you're doing, but if 3 packs in a row is just such an obvious pick, you're gonna take them, and then they're gonna have good information and be able to just really mess with your draft. I have a funny example of a draft, by the way.
Okay, ship it.
Grand Prix Detroit. It was the top 4. It was me, Ben, and Efro against the Peach Garden Oath, Owen, Huey, and Reed. And
I remember this. Yeah.
I opened Chandra.
Yep.
But this was the flip Chandra.
Yep, the creature.
She costs red 1 on her front side. I first picked face up a red 1 card. So for face up, every person at the table saw it. I put my odds of having Chandra in my deck at the end of the draft at like 5%.
Because they're just going to attack that, right?
Yeah, they were passing to me. I think it was Reed passing to me, and he was and there's no way he doesn't, cut red. I was so ready for Reed to cut red that I was like resisting taking red cards. I ended up mono red at the end of the draft.
What?
See, that's an example. God, I actually really can't remember if it was Reed or Owen passed me. I know it was not Huey. I want to say it was Reed.
It was Reed, yeah.
Yeah. And, Reed is a fantastic Magic player. He just made the finals of this Grand Prix last weekend, with the Peach Garden Oath. He's a Platinum Pro. He's played at Worlds. Like, he's incredibly good. I don't know exactly what he did in that draft. He did not team draft that well.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If I first pick a face-up double red casting cost bomb, you should not let me put that card in my deck at the end of the draft. And I got a mono red deck. So that's an example of, I think, Reed maybe being an excellent drafter, but whatever he did in that team draft, I'm skeptical that it was correct.
Yeah, and I mean, we can ask him, like we'll ask him about it. But I mean, his upbringing through Magic was, when he got competitive was Magic Online, and then transitioning right to the Pro Tour, and this was not in the heyday of team drafts. There's every chance that he hasn't done a ton of them. I don't know. He may have, and I don't know, but it's interesting to consider that for sure. I have one thing that I'm having a hard time with conceptually is I definitely get what you're saying about this dynamic of like the 2 or 3 person dynamic, right? The person on my left, the person on my right, and how I'm kind of managing that kind of thing. But the thing that I do have a hard time getting my head around here is, okay, so I'm sitting in a seat and I'm trying to screw over the person to my left while still putting together the best deck I can. Okay, that's cool. And then the person on my right is doing the exact same thing. And the person on their right is too. And then 2 people to their right also. And then that's the whole table. We're all trying to do that to each other. How does that work out, like from like a game theory standpoint? Like if we talk about a regular booster draft, I know how it works. If we're all trying to help each other out, we all give each other the best chance of having the best deck. And then it's just sort of like let the best player win when we get to the booster draft, right? Or excuse me, when we get to the rounds. And I know how that dynamic can, be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how well people read the signals and understand it. But here, it's like, I don't understand how, if I'm like, there's no purity here, right? There's no like, okay, I passed you a great black card, then started taking black. Like there's also somebody to my right who is dynamically trying to influence me, and somebody to their right who's doing that to them as well. What does the result end up being? Is it like, are these decks just a complete mess for everybody?
Yes, I think team draft between 2 teams of all extremely veteran team drafters, you'll have some pretty bad decks. The other is whoever did a better job of controlling the flow of information and reading the signals of the purposely convoluted signals, but the signals nonetheless, is going to end up in a better spot.
What they were getting, reading those signals, and also what they were sending them and screwing with the person.
Like imagine we all knew what was going on, but I was able to trick you into taking a couple black cards, which I then made you leave in your sideboard by cutting you really hard. Like even if you're trying to do that to my teammate to the left, but you got it wrong, they dodged your trap. All of a sudden, you were cutting your teammate, you were getting cut by me. Me and my teammate are both going to have slightly better decks, even though they're all going to be a little janky because we're all doing this.
Is there a macro way to figure out who did better? Like if we laid out, let's just say you could take a snapshot of the card pools that each player drafted and sort of assess.
It's kind of hard because it also depends on what you open. You can open lucky and unlucky packs just like, in a normal draft. Like
if you just took all the pack ones,
like if I'm drafting green, white, and I'm passing to you and I think you're drafting black and I open this Noxious Gear Hulk, that's just unlucky for me. It'd be much better for me if I opened, the Verdurous Gear Hulk, right? I would just,
sure.
But I think in
you're
general,
literally taking one for the team there.
Yes. In general, I think that the team that gets to play more of the good cards they have and have fewer dead picks in their sideboard did better job, but that's not always the case because the packs just break differently.
Right. And of course, like you said before, it's zero sum. So even though they did a better job, they also could have been doing a much, much, much better job than it appears by simply making it hard for the other team to actually.
Yeah. There's also a way that you get to play out all the matches and see who wins, and that's unassailable proof of the team that did.
Yeah, and it will be held that way on the thing. If you could, I'm trying to get the biggest picture viewpoint of this. What are the most important influencers on who wins a team draft here? Like, is it is it the draft portion?
Yeah.
Is it the information that we garnered and then leveraged after having done the draft?
I mean, I think at a base level, like the people with higher play skill tend to have an edge.
Yeah,
like because you still have to play games of Magic. But among teams that are like in the same bands of play skill, which I mean, all jokes aside, that will be the case in this like draft super league. We all know how to play Magic. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to play circles around Paul or Kenji or you or whatever. I think that like I'd be hard pressed to say that you're a better Magic player than Ben Stark, but right. You're also not a 2 and he's a 10. That's just not how it works.
No.
Like you're gonna play a good game of Magic against each other.
Right.
And so in that case, whoever read the draft better and whoever opened better, like that was part of it too. Like it's all, I think controlling the draft and using the information to your advantage is overall the best thing you can do, because that's the thing you have the most agency over.
Okay, like if it was your team versus the Peach Garden Oath, for example, that's the biggest source of edge, is the team who executed the best in the draft portion.
Yeah, that is why my team has a sizable edge over them.
Your team is completely absurd, by the way. It's just not even fair. I'm just
trying to get the. I am a firm believer these days of some good competitive trash talking. So even though nobody from the PGO is going to listen to the podcast, maybe Andrew Cuneo will, and then we'll tell them about this so to get them fired up.
The thing is that I think this is perfect for you then, because it's meant to be a spectacle. It's meant to be watched by people in like a showdown format. I mean, we should be talking trash.
I will be providing detailed rankings, in fact.
Yeah, it's just hard, like from my perspective, because the reason why me, Kenji, and Paul would be in there, specifically Kenji and I, but we're kind of dragging Paul in, but is because we do podcasts and commentary, not because we're such great limited players. Like you said, I mean, I'm not confident. Like I can play Magic or whatever, it's fine, but like I'm also a realist, and I know I'm giving up edge in the play skill department. And of course, I'm trying to shore up some of that by having this conversation with you in the draft portion too. But
maybe this was just another example of me controlling the flow of information and giving you intentionally.
I consider that. I consider that, but I just the way I see it is this: A, I don't think you would do that, and B, if you did, like, what else do I have, right? Like, I'm just like, I could either trust you and hope that it works and that I gain something, or I can not and still be bad at it anyway. So I'm all in on Luis here. So hopefully you didn't screw me
I have too
over.
much respect for the podcast to do that.
Whatever. All right. Well, let's call it good there. That was really insightful stuff. Obviously, this is team drafting, just based on this conversation and conversations I've had before, feels like the deepest format. I know that there's like Team Rochester and stuff that also I've been told is very, very deep as far as strategy goes. But man, this sounds just like I've got a really good hold on a lot of the dynamics at play, like in poker and in traditional booster draft and stuff. And this is kind of blowing my mind. Like you can tell I'm skeptical about some of the strategies and stuff that we've talked about, because I can relate to ones that I've experienced in poker where the human side of things really kind of screws it up, and you think you're making some genius call, but really, like, you're 50-50. You might as well just do a random number generator and you'd have the same win rate. And some of these things feel like that as well. But at the same time, there is a really deep strategic layer at play here. And God, I think it sounds awesome. Like, I think this is going to be sweet.
It is going to be really fun, and I'm going to be insufferable the closer it gets. But
you're going to be insufferable until our team smashes you guys.
There we go. There we go. I will say that I've never beaten Paul in a sanctioned event, so including like the top 4 of nationals and.
I mean, have you ever beaten me in any event?
No, I don't think I have.
I don't think you have either.
All right. Well,
I don't think Ben's ever beaten me either. Like, I don't know, man. I think I'm just going to run it up. I don't think I've ever beaten Eric at anything ever, though. He's just unreal.
Well, I think we're just going to have to fall back on, our Hall of Fame resumes and the fact that we're all very experienced team drafters to
carry you somehow through this tough ordeal of facing me, Kenji, and Paul.
I couldn't even finish. But no, the Team Draft Super League, we're actually very excited about it. It's going to be good times. Sweet.
Like I said, I'll put the link in the show notes.
And you'll get to see, kind of what I if I practice what I preach here.
Yeah,
I'm going to make the hero call. I'm going to pass you a Noxious Gearhulk equivalent, and you're just going to play it, and I'm going to look so dumb.
Oh, I'm going to play the hell out of it. Yeah, I'll splash for it or something. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show this week. Great talk there about Team Draft and the Team Draft Super League. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes for people that want to check that out. Supposed to go in about a month or so. If it fires. So that'll be pretty cool. If you want to find us on social media, I'm Marshall_LR. Luis is LSV. Real easy to find us. We're always on Twitter. In fact, sometimes while we're doing the show. You just tweeted again, didn't you? I knew it. I just saw something pop up on the side of my head, and boom, there he is.
You're the one who's checking Twitter during.
No, I saw it. It alerted or something. You're such nonsense. I just knew by the silence. I've got a read on you, man. You're not going to be able to trick me in this team super draft nonsense.
Well, to be fair, when you're doing the closing, I have nothing to say, and I'm in fact barred from saying it as per my contract.
There's no contract, but you are correct that I am just in the closing part anyway. I want to mention our sponsor, channelfireball.com. Please do check them out for all your Magic needs. And if you've got a bunch of rares sitting around, I know what I do with them. I give them to you, the listener. But if you don't have a podcast and you want to try to get some money out of them, send them back to Channel Fireball. They'll even give you a 30% bonus if you're trading them in for store credit, which you can use for all types of stuff. There's limited resources, sleeves, and deck boxes, for example, if you need some supplies. But there's also other things, there's a sealed product and singles and all that kind of stuff. 30% is a big game too. You can really kind of keep that Magic bankroll rolling right along. That's it. It's going to do it for the show this week. We will be back next week with finally, it took forever, the Ether Revolt Sunset show as we start to ramp up again for Amonkhet and Amonkhet, spoiler season's in full swing. Some pretty cool stuff and some pretty spiky kind of limited resources style mechanics already have been shown. So I'm starting to get excited for that as we move our focus towards the new set. Anyway, we'll see you next week with the Ether Revolt Sunset show. Until then.
This seems like a perfect time, since we're on the subject, to talk about some of the perils of teaming with one Benjamin Stark.
Yes.
So if Ben had a motto, it would be better late than never, I think. At least that's the theme of this week. Let me give you some examples of how Ben rules. Ben, when it was rooming with Pat Cox, a good friend of mine, before Pro Tour Brussels, and the site was a solid half an hour away from the hotel, as you probably remember. And Pat's like, all right, I want to get breakfast, so when should we wake up? And Ben's like, we should probably, and you have to be there by 9. It starts at 9. You should be there by 8:55. Ben wanted to wake up at 8:15. He wanted, it was a half-hour drive, train or whatever. You wanted to get there at 8:55, and Ben wanted to wake up to have the alarm set for 8:15.
Yeah.
And Pat's like, I want to get breakfast. He's like, that's why I said 8:15, not 8:20.
I love that.
And Pat got very mad and woke up at 7:30, obviously. Yeah. When Ben was in the second draft at Grand Prix Houston, it's an individual event, he was 11-1. He went to go get Subway after winning his round to go to 11 wins. He did not make it back for the second draft.
He actually just got lost.
Yes, he got lost. Started running in a random direction.
And you know what happens at a GP when you're not in your seat and the draft fires? You don't get to draft a deck.
Nope. And so he got an 0-3 from 11-1, so he cashed, but did not, of course, top 8.
And he was clearly a heavy favorite to top 8.
Yes, he needed to win 1 of 3 rounds. When Ben teamed with Owen and I believe Huey for a Grand Prix Barcelona, Reed didn't want to go. Owen said, or no, it was Owen and Reed. Huey didn't want to go. Owen said, Ben, I only have one rule if we're going to team together, and there can be no discussion of this rule. The only rule I have is you will be there 15 minutes early. That is it. That's the only thing I ask, and we are not going to discuss this condition. Ben, of course, responded with, look, they never get started on time, and you don't need the first 10 minutes of deck building that much anyway. And Ben did this in a group chat that involved Owen, Huey, and Reed, and, of course, Ben. Huey said, Ben, just stop.
Yeah, the funny part is that like you might think that was Ben like channeling his inner Luis and just like having some fun with Owen, and I guarantee it wasn't.
No, Ben started to justify it. He was like, just stop. His condition was no argument. Be there early.
Yeah.
Ben got there 5 minutes early instead of 15, but they still got to play.
Yeah, which is probably why Owen said 15 minutes instead of 5.
And we're going to cap this off by Ben Stark at the last Grand Prix. Teams, San Antonio. It was Ben Stark, Eric Froelich, and Andrew Cuneo. Ben went to get Subway in between rounds. Did not make it back for his round. He got a match.
That literally happened. Again. He got lost on Subway again in Texas.
Their team still won the match.
Yeah, well, that's unbelievable. They were just shaking their head. I literally thought they were joking.
Yeah. And that is Ben Stark. Better late than never.